another life lessons video while I'm driving up to Ukiah. The first thing I'd like to address is that throughout the whole career of electrical, whatever I've done, everyone has ever told me is basically you'll never use what you're learning. That came with code. I remember them telling me about ampacity, about grounding, about figuring out pipe size, about reading any kind of drawings. They said, oh no, you won't be using that. Oh, you'll never find work. That was the very first thing that I ever heard when I went to that chicken shit school in Santa Clara, IBT. Everyone told me, don't do it. Starting with my dad, he always told me, don't do it. It's a waste of time. You won't do well, blah, 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 right? Maybe you should think of something else. Well, once I put my mind to something, I get it done. It's called GIFD. Get it fucking done. There's no fucking wiggle room. There's no, complaining. There's no, oh, I'm too tired. It's either you get it done or you fucking stop. That's it. That's like one of my good friends told me. Basically, you should live your life. If you're going to do something, you live it like somebody's put a gun to your head, and if you don't do it, you're dead. Now, if everyone lived your life like that, there would be a lot of shit that would get done, because then you wouldn't have any excuse. You'd either get it done, you figure out a way, or you'd be dead. Something that you value, like if most people, they have something that they value, except for the extreme psychopaths. But there's something that they value. If they were to have that destroyed, imagine how much effort and energy they put in to make sure that wasn't destroyed. What I'm getting at is that when I put my mind to something, I do it. So one of the very first things I decided, and that from a very young age, I was always interested in electronics. So I thought, electrician, how much different can that be? Well, I didn't know anything about construction. I didn't know how to build much. I remember as a kid, whacking a few nails into things and, watching my dad saw stuff, and, I could do some basics, but I didn't know anything about sawzalls and drilling and 1032 screws and wiring panels up. I didn't know any of that stuff. But when you put me in front of something and you kind of explain to me one time, if you're paying attention and you have your notepad there ready to write it down, after a while you figure it out and you just observe what other people do that are doing things correctly, you get it done as well. So once I passed my state certification, that was one of the biggest hurdles. People kept telling me, oh, you're not state certified. You're not state certified. Well, motherfucker, I went down there first try, didn't go to any classes. I'd have to fucking go and beg people to teach me. I looked in the code book, I went online, and I looked up as many questions as I could, and I paid attention throughout my whole 5 years as I went through in some temp company, doing the most hardcore, nasty bullshit you can imagine, almost dying a couple times. But once I went into that test room, I knew I could do it because I paid attention. I knew Ohm's law. That's all you really need. I knew how to look stuff up in the book. Boom, 92+%. A pass is a pass. If you can do 70%, nobody gives a fuck. Once you have that state certification, you're halfway there, right? What do I mean by halfway? I mean that you're never done. You're always halfway done. With electrical, there is no end to how much you can know. It's the same with any other trade. That's the beauty about electrical. There's so many different avenues. Even after 10,000 plus hours of doing all this stuff and going through all these different shops, doing way more variety than what most people get to do, in the end, I'll be the first one to admit that I'm by far know a little bit of electrical. I got a lot to learn because every day when I'm trying to teach stuff to people, I realize that there are way smarter people out there that know a lot more than me. Well, what can I do? I can learn from them too. And once I learn from them, I absorb that knowledge and I use it on the next job. So when I have to put in a heat pump, I didn't know what a heat pump was. I I didn't know anything much about HVAC, but I did study and I learned how to do controls and read diagrams. So that's one of the very first things you have to do, is learn how to be able to read. When you're a child, reading basic ABC 1, 2, 3 books, right? That's how you start. Well, when you're an electrician, it's the same thing. You're looking at all these different symbols, all these drawings, and you have to be able to translate that into the real world. And the real world, the beauty about it is they can't prefab the real world. It's very difficult. Things are too fast. Right now they're trying their best to try and crack the union by making everything prefab. Well, if everything was prefab, then why are we having to refab the prefab? Because you can't do it. You can only do it in very specialized locations. And those are few and far between, because every time the customer wants to make a change, or the engineer decides he wants to change something, or guess what, nothing's perfect, then where does the electrician fall in? Not an installer. I'm talking about a real world journeyman electrician. He goes out there and he figures it out. Now, I'm not talking about jury rigged chicken shit nasty bullshit. I'm talking about actually coming up with some legitimate real world constructive problem solving that we're able to get it and make it look like it was engineered. And that's what I've learned throughout my whole career. There is no hard and fast rules. There's only what you are able to figure out and get it done. And then once you get it done, does that look correct? Most people, they might not know how to do electrical, but they can look at something and they can tell you if it looks good or not. It's the same with an inspector. If he comes in and he sees some stupid bullshit, he's gonna fucking tear that apart and write you a bunch of corrections. There's no point in shortcutting through life, and it's the same with electrical. Well, right now I'm heading up to Ukiah to put in some 3-ton and 5-ton units. Well, nobody's ever taught me how to do air handler units before. All I knew was line and load. As electricians, they said that's all you need to know, line and load. Those low voltage guys will do the rest. Well, guess what? I do it all. I do the line and load. I do the piping. I do the disconnect. I do the fuses. I do the ordering. I look at all the schematics. I do the troubleshooting. I do the low voltage controls. I do the TCP panels. I do the heat pumps. I look up the PDFs for thermostats and figure out what terminals I'm landing to depending on the situations. I program the VFDs. I program the thermostats. I can set all the zones. It's all the same. If you can read the diagrams, that's half the battle. All right. Peace out.